Just checking I'm still recording. Let's dive on over to Ethereum. Thanks very much for joining me today. Let's take a look at the Ethereum price charts and do a little bit of technical analysis. The Bitcoin video today, by the way, for people who are interested, is got technical analysis in it. Sure, it does. It's got lots of that in it. It's basically the whole thing is technical analysis, but really the whole thing is actually a lesson in FOMO. I wanted to give a lesson in FOMO, so I did it. That's why it lasts for 40 minutes. It's kind of just like, let's look at this volatility with me for 40 minutes as the things are clicking over the hourly close and all the rest of it, and just give you a sort of little bit of a sort of an introduction into the life of a FOMO-free trader, so you can get a sort of full-on taste of what that's like at the time. What have we got happening here with this thing? Well, you can see on the 24-hour time frame that, well, actually, you might not be able to see it because the chart's got so much mess on it. I appreciate that. Let me try and get. I'm just adding more to it. My goodness. Try and get rid of some of this junk off here so you can see what we're looking at. So what have we got here? Well, we have the golden cross coming up in the next couple of days, potentially, depending on how the price action goes. You know, when these things happen, would I anticipate these things getting a retest? Yeah. What's the advantages of where we are price action wise compared to it? Well, you know, we're relatively close to them. You know, we could go back down to retest one of these things. Whether or not we do it initially or not is, you know, only time will tell. You know, but we could do that over the next wee while, and maybe we'll retest them. And we've got all these horizontal supports in. So should that actually happen, and you're watching this video but you're not watching the ones in between, and you want to kind of have some ideas, then, you know, 177, 185, 190 are our targets. Let me get rid of this here green drawing that we put in yesterday and just talk about how there's a couple of things happening here. We're at the lower end of our sort of wedginess. I have it as a wedge here on this thing. If I put it on log, then the price action itself looks way more wedgy itself. Obviously, this is linear. I'm going to call that a wedge rather than a channel. I don't particularly care. I really don't. I never do about these things. You can people get their knickers in twists, but I don't. You can see that we came down here and kind of basically got quite close to the 21 EMA, which is in at this 190s area. Obviously, looking at the price action, you can see just even here 196 was our lows today on that. We've been talking about how the prices could go underneath 200 and whatnot ever since we came up as high as this fake out territory here. Of course, people were talking about that as potentially being a breakout and going wild about it, but again, if you want to see the sort of this is on a bigger time frame. The same sort of feeling is is completely applies from the Bitcoin video, completely applies to. I mean, that's just 40 minutes of us talking together on that Bitcoin video about FOMO, essentially, right? Well worth watching in my opinion, but I'm biased. But the same thing applies here in the 24-hour time frame. Same thing applies in the 24-hour time frame. So of course you're stretching it across a longer period of time. So we had this fake out period here. We came back into it. We came back down here, and we're touching this. The question really does become that will this actually operate as support, as we've seen it doing so far, offering up entries for people who want to get in again in the sort of 195, 6, 7 area or whatever. You know, in that area to come up here. And of course, if you want to, then I'm not a financial advisor, not financial advice, but people are happily able to take 7% profit on that currently. And if they just got in, you know, in terms of just the day, you know, you're 4.5% up on the day. So that's all good. And that so that's kind of some positive things there, but there's some negative things here too. We have got these two sort of wedgies that we've got here, and you can see on the RSI we broke out below it, and you can see on the stochastics we broke out below it. You can also see that during this whole phase here that the MACD is being bearishly divergent. So you've got this sort of thing. Well, this isn't necessarily bearishly divergent at all. It necessarily isn't, because it isn't there on the 24-hour time frame. You know, you've got this slight warning sign here, which kind of goes hand in hand with these other things. So you might wonder sometimes, why have I got these on here and I'm so dismissive of one and not the other? Well, you know, it's maybe time to pay a wee bit more attention to how this is going on as we're looking at this change here. We've gone below a sort of our sort of support, you could say, like ish, almost kind of coming down here. Will this operate as support in at the median line, the middle line? That's 50 there. You know, absolutely could do, in which case we could see this turn around off the back of this price action that we're having today, and indeed the price action we get in tomorrow. So we can anticipate this potentially having a turnaround here, in which case we can get rid of this thing for now, and I'll not bother putting it back on the chart in a hurry. I think it served a good purpose for us. I think we can appreciate that its job has been done there. I'm also going to remove the lower one. Now look how long this has been on there, since March the 12th, since our low knows this trend line has been broken on the RSI and the daily time frame now, so that's a significant thing in and of itself. But of course, well, I'll leave that one on actually, because perhaps we'll come back up and retest and maybe break back into that again in the future. Obviously, it's quite narrow looking as I have it, you know, like not stretched out. But you could stretch this thing out yourself and look at it whatever way you want. You don't have to have it so squeezed down like me, you know, like you could just look at it like that if you wanted to. It all depends on your own sort of what suits you. That's what I'm looking at. What have we got though on the go between this high and the previous high? Was there any divergence? Well, there wasn't on the RSI and the stochastics. So, you know, that's quite good to see there, but there wasn't the MACD. And will we remain within this channel? Overall, there's plenty of trading to be done. And I'm not a financial advisor, none of this financial advice, but for anybody who's been looking at the videos over the last wee while, could have easily got in below the 200s and have a stop in profit right now if they wanted to. And for instance, as an example, that's an arbitrary one. In fact, you know, for people looking at the videos, they could have happily have shorted it from the sort of up there to 220 area and be looking and asking the question, will I be able to take profit down here at 193 or not? You know, will that happen? I kind of wonder at this point now, if we do go down here and test these things, you know, could we potentially see a measured move happen, or at least a chunk of a measured move happen? And if I draw that sort of idea in, then you can see that perhaps we could go down towards that 177 area that we spoke about already, and that's maybe something to be bearing in mind. Now, I'm not particularly bearish on this because we're above this area over here, which was a previous sort of consolidation period for us, and we're above the neutral line here, for instance, on the RSI. This is and the stochastics. You know, this here formation is inevitable during a rising wedge as well in the MACD. So but there's this likelihood that these things break towards the downside, and we have fundamental changes happening in the market coming up soon for people who are you know, are aware of that. If you care about fundamental changes, which in a way you should, because there's so few of them. That it's worth paying in mind. Actually, in terms of fundamentals as well, it's probably worth at some point looking at the Ethereum 2.0 style stuff and whatever else. I've not done any research really worth talking about into that. Somebody asked me to look at fundamentals, and I might consider doing that soon, but I'm not at the minute. I'm just kind of looking at the technicals regardless of the fundamentals. What do we want to look at here? Let's just go down to the 4-hour time frame, and then we can just leave this one actually today and say, look, you know, if this is a downward trend, is this lower than this low? It is, yeah. So let's see. Let's put this back on again. Is that lower than that low? Yeah, just slightly. Or is it? No, it's not actually. So you've got some bullish divergence. Sorry, it's got bullish divergence on the RSI. It's funny to me, to my eyes, looking at this right now, that there looks lower than that, which is why it's always important to kind of verify things. I get it wrong. I don't know if that's me being visually dyslexic or something that maybe you're looking at it going, what are you saying, Rocky? But it's worth just checking. Sometimes it is worth just getting a line out and just drawing it across and saying, you know, what's going on here, and then open it up and going, ah, look, it's above it. Oh, it's on it. You know, just to be kind of, just so you know yourself. It's divergent here bullishly on the stochastics as well, if you're considering this to be a downtrend. I mean, overall, this is really just consolidating. It's a bit unfair, but we're in this overall upward trend, I suppose you could say, as well. So let's look towards the upward side things and see if there's divergence historically running up towards this. That was a high there. It was very much higher than previously highs were, but there's this sort of a concept of over here where you've got this high and this one here, and you can see that between these it could potentially be like that. So, you know, that's a 4-hour time frame. So let's go up to the 24-hour and see if that, we've talked about 24-hour long enough. We know that that's not divergent, so it isn't on that one. Let's look in between times then at the 12-hour and see how the 12-hour one's shaping up. RSI is not divergent in this upward trend here, and the stochastics is, and the MACD is as well. Anyway, at the minute, really what it comes down to for me is how these things respond in around these areas. You've got this low side here on the you've got this low area here on the stochastics where we've come down to here, you know, and we're higher than we were over here. That's good to see. You know, can we continue to go up the way I'd like to see that going up the way and turning around from here? Over here, in terms of this is an uptrend, so you can look at this neutral line as being the oversold area and look for turnarounds here. So, you know, we've had this, it's come down, it's tested it, it's come back up above the neutral line. Was that as much of the oversoldness as we were going to get, a la 14th of April time frame? I was going to draw on it, but I chose the wrong tool. So could it be the similar sort of a deal there, and will we see it going up? And other things to bear in mind, I suppose, are was this at the time a small sort of head and shoulders here at the top of the thingy that we got a measured move off the back of, and, you know, in terms of the RSI and whatnot, and you could clearly say that yes, it was. And what happened then afterwards? I think we spoke about that at the time. Did we not? I think we did. anyway, so there you go. And that's going to have to do it. So I'm going to tune out for now. Thanks very much for tuning in. Please like and subscribe. Share this video with a friend if you think you've got one that would like it. And what I try to do here is give you some technical analysis that will give you the context, as I know that you watch other people. This is a relatively small, relatively new channel here, and I'm just going for the FOMO free, easy to integrate, plug and play technical analysis that you can go ahead and watch all the people that you've always been watching for the last ages with the big families, the big communities out there, and they're maybe going to go wildly bullish or wildly bearish, or give you some idea some way or another, and hopefully this gives you a bit more context just to add on top, and that's all we're really going for at the minute. I don't want to set the heather alight overall. It's not aiming to be a massive tsunami revolution like the Peter McKinnon of technical analysis. It's not what I'm going for, 1 million subscribers in less than a year or any of that sort of crap. Instead, we're just trying to be realistic about things, and I hope that it helps, and that's all it is. I'm just trying to help, just trying to be another tool in your toolbox. That's really all I want to be. Thank you so much. Share it with a friend if you've got one, and all that. They think would like it. Really appreciate it. Like, subscribe. You've seen YouTube before, so you know the rules. I appreciate it as much or more than anybody. I don't know, genuinely do, and I'll say thank you to you after. See you next time.